Hi guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. Welcome to another episode of the Rad Season Show. I'm super excited to be joined today by legendary surfboard shaper Nick Uricchio, the founder of Semente Surfboards. Nick, how are you, man?
All right, good man. Thanks. Nice to join you too, Ellie.
Yeah, good to have you on. So, are you in the factory at the moment? Or are you back at home or
No, I'm at the factory.
nice?
I am at the
And,
factory.
and,
I have
and
all
that's
the
up
boards
in
behind me and all that stuff.
that's up in Ericeira, right?
Yeah, we're in
Okay,
Lisbon. It's about 6 kilometers north of Ericeira.
okay, nice. And how's it been going there recently? Is it bit of a run of swell and
The swell's been amazing. It's been nonstop run of swell for a while now, and it's like today. It's offshore. It's been offshore all day today, offshore all day yesterday. It's probably I don't know, 3 to 4 meters probably. It's been pretty solid.
nice,
It's been
cool.
pretty big. The young
And
ones are out there. The young ones are on it. Right?
and I mean, there's so many options around there as well, right? Like depending on
Oh,
sort
in
of
this area, yeah, there's tons in Portugal in general. There's tons of options.
yeah,
I mean, pretty much whatever your taste is, you can find it somewhere. I mean, today it's super big here. Super tubes is probably a bit smaller, but really good.
mhm,
Nazare is off the scale for normal folks like me and everybody else. 90% of the population. Then down on the coast of Estoril, it's probably meter and a half,
yeah,
maybe 2 meters of Carcavelos. I don't know, but I mean, you could pretty much find if you're looking for smaller waves to surf, you can find them anywhere along the coast.
yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm about 10 minutes from Carcavelos, so I'm in Estoril.
Oh, okay, so
So
it's
yeah,
like
so
what, a meter there today?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's about
something like that.
that.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to, I guess, jump back to like growing up and before you moved to Portugal and when sort of surfing started for you.
Well, I was born East Coast, United States. I was born in Connecticut,
Okay.
and I moved out to California when I was 10. And when I moved out to California, first thing I really got into there was diving. I went to school in Arcadia, California, which is about what 30 minutes from Huntington Beach would be the closest like coastal point there.
Mhm.
And I started originally diving because I was kind of started diving with my grandfather on the East Coast. We started
Okay.
scuba diving and skin diving off the islands of Catalina, San Clemente, Santa Rosa, Santa Barbara, St. Nicholas, and all that. And some of my friends in high school were surfing and invited me to surf one day at Huntington. I think the guy that invited me actually had a board he wanted to get rid of, and he ended up selling it to me because he loaned it for me the first time I went out. So loaned it to me the first time I went out, and I ended up buying it. So I think that was probably why he invited me to go surfing. He wanted to get rid of this freaking surfboard. But that was when I was what 15. So I started surfing kind of late.
Okay. And how was it like? Was it pretty busy back then, or was the focus around Malibu and like
No, it was
how was
busy.
Huntington back then?
I was busy.
Okay.
Huntington was way busy. I mean, all those places, Newport, Huntington, Malibu, Rincon, they all have, huge history and they've been, people have been surfing them forever.
Yeah.
So it was super busy back when I started, and it was busy 10, 20 years earlier and it's busy now like 40 years later. It's still
Yeah.
super busy. So, yeah, I started, it was busy there. And I always kind of looked for places that weren't that busy when I surfed in California. I surfed a lot in Ventura, and that for me, like California starts from county line up for me. It always
Yeah.
has. Never crazy about Southern California that much. I like surfing up north from Ventura County on up. So
Mhm. And
that's where I spent most of my time surfing.
like when was then the first time you left California to go and explore different parts of the world and yeah, I guess different waves and kind of look for
Well, I did
other
never, I
places?
left California. I My first trip from California really to look at the rest of the world was in 78.
Okay.
And I was what 2 years out of high school. I graduated in 76. So in 78, I did the American backpacking trip to Europe, right? Which was back in the day, Freddie Laker's flight. I don't know if you remember Freddie Laker's Airlines.
No.
It was like the cheapest flight around. It was, I mean, back in the day, it was $1,000 round trip, which
Okay,
these
wow.
days is pretty expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the time, it was super cheap. But there was no comfort, there was no food, there was no pillows, there was no blankets, there was nothing. But it was a cheap flight. And I flew over to London on a Freddie Lakers flight and came on a backpacking trip to Europe with a Euro pass. just kind of did all of Europe. And my last stop was actually I stopped along the way, but my last stop to stay a while was Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And I only really noticed it was surf here when I was taking a train from Lisbon to Cascais, the one that goes from Caixa de Rei, you know that one, Caixa de Rei up to Cascais. And it was pumping that day, and I passed by Santa Maru, which you could see from the train back in the day.
Nice.
It was pumping. I got out at Carcavelos and I walked down to the beach, and it was like insane. You know, when the left used to work back in the day and that. And I borrowed a surfboard from a guy on the beach. No wetsuit and that. It was cold. It was like September, I think, but still, you know, Atlantic's cold. I had half an hour surf on this guy's board where he walked up and down the beach, making sure I didn't run off with his board because there wasn't that many boards around back in the day. And when I got out of the water, I asked him, hey, you know, where can I buy a surfboard? And he said, nowhere. There were no boards for sale. There was nothing here. No shops, nothing at all.
Wow.
So he said probably in France or something like that. So I checked it out and I had like 3 days left on my Euro pass, and I ended up getting a train up to Saint-Jean-de-Luz on the border there between France and Spain and France.
Yep.
I remember getting out of the train in the morning. It was pissing down rain, and I walked in front of a surf shop and sat on the doorstep of the surf shop till it opened. And I walked in and bought a natural progression surfboard, which were made in Malibu, ironically, and body glove, which is also a California label back in the day. And I bought both those, got back on the train, and my Euro pass ended in Santa Polónia in Lisbon. That was my last day of my Euro pass. It finished right there. So the first train I paid was from Lisbon to Cascais. And I got off in Carcavelos, and I stayed there for like 2 months.
Okay. And so where was everyone getting their equipment from if there was nowhere? Like, were they just going to France as well, or like?
No, it was foreigners that came through, and that people just passed through.
And people leaving stuff and.
Yeah, leaving stuff, and I mean there were the old buy a van in London, drive it down, like 3 or 4 surfers come down, surf for a month or whatever, and just flog all their material before they went back up, up north on that. So. Yeah, but there was not a lot of stuff. And it was kids that came back from Brazil or, just a lot of old, not too many boards around at the time.
And what did you do? So after those couple of months in Carcavelos, did you then
what happened? I met Nuno Jonet, who ended up being like the spokesman, a big broadcaster, or what do they call him? He worked with ASP for years. Nuno Jonet still does. He still does a lot of major events and that. For the WCT and WQS as a speaker in that. He was a speaker for the ASP back in the day, a long time ago.
Okay.
And I talked with Nuno before I left. I met him, and he was, super nice guy. He was a returnee from Angola after the revolution, all that. And I said, I want to come back here. This place is unreal and that. And he said, yeah, come back. We'll start something. We'll get something rolling. So I went home and worked for, I think it was 3 or 4 months. My dad was maitre d' at the Beverly Hilton at the time. So I worked for my dad as a waiter. Stashed some money away and flew back to Portugal without any game plan, really. Just, on a whim that, me and Nuno lined something up. And, we made jewelry. We did macrame. We ended up making some skateboards and that at one point. Started the first skateboard company, ran the first skateboard contest here in Portugal. And Nuno had another friend in common who was António Caldas. And he used to hang around the house at times, and he came by and said, hey, I'm going to go up to England and learn how to make surfboards with a guy named Roger Cooper. I don't know if you're familiar with Roger Cooper.
Was that in Newquay or?
I want to say Roger Cooper was in Cornwall.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
All right. And he went up and learned how to make surfboards with Roger. And then he came back, and he wanted to set up this surfboard business. And I had a little money, and Nuno and I decided, okay, let's do this. 3 of us going to make surfboards. Well, it took Nuno about a month to figure out that there wasn't enough money. He had 2 kids in that, so he figured there's not enough money in this ship for all of us, to live off it. We're probably making 4 boards a month or something like that. But it was that's where we started. We started in Costa, and it would have been 79, coming around to 80 when we started making surfboards there.
And you were making them in the city, or was that?
No, it was Costa da Caparica, other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was south of Lisbon, just over the bridge there. And it was, it was national foam. Antonio had learned a bit. up with Roger Cooper, but it was all, I mean, all our first clients were guinea pigs, man. It was, it was just, we did it with our heart and all that, but I can't, I'm not going to say we made some fantastic boards straight off, because we didn't. I mean, I had made one board in California. I made it in my dad's garage, and he said, "You're never going to do that in my garage again." All right. So I had like zero experience,
And then, I mean, after like sort of doing every board, were you just then picking up things and?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of. It's a funny thing about Portugal, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's a great place for surfing, and a lot of guys travel through, and a lot of shapers travel through. I met, in the early days, I met a lot of shapers that came through. Neville Hyman, came through way back. Been quite a good, large amount of good shapers have come through, and when they're away from like the intense places like Australia or Hawaii or California, they're very open to chat, and talk about designs, this and that, help you out a bit. It's different when they're in their own little, you know what I mean? When it's in the intense little area where they work and try and make a living, I don't think I would have gotten as much information from them or had, conversations that I have with a lot of shapers if it wasn't here. So it's a good place. It was a great place to have grown. I mean, the surf's amazing as far as like, for any shaper to, build his skills, it's a dynamite place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. But we were fortunate there. We had a lot of shapers who came through and spent time, and were open to, share ideas and help us out in that. So.
And they wouldn't have felt that you're like kind of trying to steal all their ideas anyway, because if you haven't set up shop and you're not right next to them in California, and it's not like you're competing with them for the same market. And
for sure, and it was like, I'm sure for a lot of these guys that have been in the business for a long time, if they were looking at this going, Jesus, good luck with this business here, boys. I mean, our material, we had a blank that. Just tell you a story. When after Costa da Caparica, I made boards with Antonio. We made boards until 81, and then the end of 81, I moved up here with my partner, which my partner for the last 40 years, Miguel Katzenstein. We moved up here and started Semente Surfboards. That first label was Lipsticks Surfboards, by the way. Mm-hmm. And when we moved up here, we started Cement. And at the time, we were using the same blank that me and Antonio were using. Antonio and I were using in Costa da Caparica, which was a national blank. It was made in a mold in northern Portugal and that. And this thing literally, the deck line would run off the nose, had a huge camel in the middle of it, and then would drop the tail. And the blank at its thinnest points coming off the middle was probably 5 inches thick. In the hump, it was probably 9 or 10. It was super, super thick in the middle, all right? So you had to start shaping this thing. You had to start planing it sideways to get the hump out, and then you'd run back to, front to back on it. Yep. So Neville Hyman called. He was a friend of ours. He was a friend of my partner's, Miguel, because Miguel had been to Australia and all that. And Neville said, "Hey, I want to do some boards with him over there." I said, yeah, how many you want to do, Nev? I'll do like 30. Nev came over, all charged to do 30 surfboards. Shaped one for Nuno Jonet, and he said, "Hey, I think I'll do one more off this blank. I'm going to call it quits." He said, "There's no way. I want to shape 30 boards out of this piece of shit." You know, and I mean, it was pretty gnarly back in the day.
And what sort of boards were you shaping back then? Like, what was the kind of like standard kind of sizes and stuff that people?
We started with pretty much single fins, some 20s, 3 fins were kind of taking roots. We were doing a lot of those. It was all glass on fins. Some of the singles were box fins, but it was, all the 3 fins were glass on, 20s were glass ons. Pretty short boards back then, actually, because everybody was riding like, in solid surf. It was a period everybody was riding like 5.8s, 5.10s, 5.11s, stuff like that. And only when we moved up here, like when we all started spinning out on our 5.11s at Kosher's when it was 3 to 4 meters, we decided, wow, we need a bit more board, not as much width, a bit more of this and that. And, it changed a lot what we were doing. But, I came from Costa da Caparica as far as shaping to up here, which is like, night and day.
And like, was the initial idea in the move, was it purely lifestyle? You were thinking, okay, we're going to move somewhere where it's a bit quieter. If we go to Ericeira, like you've got perfect waves on the doorstep. There's good waves in Costa da Caparica as well, but it's closer to town, probably a bit busier. Were you just thinking about was it more about the lifestyle than it was about the business back then?
Totally about lifestyle.
Okay.
Totally. It was totally irresponsibly about lifestyle. I mean, that's, Miguel came to me and he said, hey, if you ever want to do this business somewhere else, give me a shout and we'll do it. And things were not going well, for, various reasons and that. But I decided I want to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And I went and talked to Miguel at the beach one day. And we decided, where do we want to go? And we thought, best surf in the country. Let's go to Ericeira. We came up here, not really thinking about, major business game plan, more about what we wanted was to surf,
Yep.
And enjoy surfing and that. And at the time, it was literally 2 hours from Lisbon back then, before like the highways came in and all that. All your clients are in Lisbon, all your materials in Lisbon. It was not a great game plan as far as business goes. In the long run, it worked out, but we weren't like visionaries that said, this is going to work in the long run. Yeah, we got to peg because 10 years from now, this is going to be the spot. That wasn't our plan. We just wanted to surf, and we moved up to Ericeira and started doing it. We were in a great place to surf, bad place for business. I mean, we had, we started out with, like 200 I'm trying to think. It was a miserable amount of money that we borrowed from his father at the time.
Okay.
And, it was enough to rent a house. We did the factory on the bottom floor because the guy hadn't finished the house down below. So we told him we're going to do a factory down there temporarily, did the factory downstairs, lived upstairs, and, bought enough materials to get started. And that was pretty much it. And, we had to wait for clients on the weekend, if they came.
I was going to say, would they come from Lisbon on the weekend?
Yeah.
And, make that 2 hour drive.
Guys, Carcavelos, and whatnot. But yeah, they weren't not like hordes of them came up. You get like.
Was it pretty difficult? Like, how would you get up there then? Would you just go was it the coastal road?
Well, you take coastal road from down from Cascais up.
Yeah.
Or coastal road from Lisbon, which was always by way of IC-19, that one.
Okay, yeah.
You ran that road. All right, and then it was through Rio de Moro.
Yeah.
Another little. I mean, it took you like literally 2 hours to get up.
Wow.
And the thing at the time is that back in that time, not everybody had a car. I mean, everybody's got a car these days. But, I remember when I lived in Costa, a trip to Ericeira was the one guy that had a car, he would say, I'm thinking about going to Ericeira, and if you want to come, everybody had to put in some money for gas. And it was like a major event to go to Ericeira, It was like this big trip. So, yeah, it was different back then. I mean, we had bills everywhere. Because we were like struggling through the week, and we had bills at like the coffee, we had telephone bills at the coffee place. Because it'd be like, we had to make a lot of calls for business and that, and didn't have money. So the guy had this telephones used to be operated where they had a little click box.
Okay.
That certain amount of time, and it would click another number. So when we started our calls, we had business calls to make. We'd start like say it was on 500, and we finished it was on 525. And the guy at the Cafe Vittoria here would write on a piece of paper, okay, another 25 clicks, you owe me. We get to the end of the month, we owed him 250 or 300 clicks, which was, I don't know how much it was each one. We had bills at the little supermarket and all this. Every time we sold a board, it was pretty much filling all the holes we had created.
passing it around, right?
Yeah. But it was.
And could you just hide out there, or were you did you have to go back to Lisbon quite a lot? For
well, we had for materials, we had to Lisbon, to try and sell the shops, we had to go to Lisbon.
Yeah.
We had to take care of a lot of stuff in Lisbon, actually. And we had one car at the time, which was a car I bought off some French guy for I want to say like $100 or something like that.
Okay.
Which was eventually confiscated by the police. So then we were carless. Then we had a buddy who was helping us out a bit. It was pretty wild times, I remember,
Was there surf shops back then? Was there sort of people opening up stores?
No, there were two major shops in Lisbon, which were situated right around, I want to say, where is it? The part up there where the statue of, the Brasilia Cafe and all that is up in Lisbon up there. Okay, anyways, Chiado.
Yeah.
Chiado. There were two shops there. One was Sociedade, the other was Casa Sena. Two multi-sport shops. Right. And when I was together with Antonio in Costa da Caparica with Lipsticks, he was the first guy that ever sold a surfboard to a sports shop in Lisbon. And we went in with the surfboard, and Antonio was a great salesman. He could sell his mother, this guy. But we walk in there, and Guy's like, what do I want this thing for? He says, oh, it's surfing. It's this new sport stuff coming. Nobody knows about this. I don't need this shit. And it was like a major battle to sell this thing.
Wow.
So it wasn't easy, and there were no surf shops, none of that. I think all the surf shops that came after the label started to set in, like, Billabong settled in, Quicksilver settled in, Instinct, all that.
When did that all start happening? When was would you say the turning point?
I want to say 80s. It started in the 80s. We started in 1982 up here. I can't remember the exact date that Billabong set up, but I think it was probably about 5 or 6 years after that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And they set up in Ericeira as well,
Billabong set up here, and Quicksilver had set up in Lisbon. Billabong was probably the first major label to set up in this area.
Yep.
And I mean, since then, a lot of them have set up. I mean, now the two biggest shops in the country are right here. Quicksilver started the board rider store and that. Now Billabong's got 58 shop, which is Billabong, Multimark, all the stuff they distribute here in Portugal. Mm-hmm. So it has become the mecca.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a world surfing reserve. It's there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying, you had no idea, right, that was kind of.
Nah.
People are going to say, you guys were visionaries, and you could sort of see it coming, and
no.
With these perfect waves, everyone's going to kind of, be drawn to it. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it was like a tiny fishing village, right? Before.
I don't think it's got nothing to do with vision. I think it's just lucky about time and place, in the world, pretty much, right. And I think what attracted me to Portugal at the time was that being from California, and having passion to surf and enjoying surfing all around California, but not enjoying the crowd that much. I looked at Portugal. I thought, just as paradise found for a Californian. Weather's beautiful, the food's great, the wine's great. Beaches are beautiful. The surf is amazing. The beautiful women and that. Why not? This place is, awesome. And there's 10 guys in the water. I'd surf coaches back then. I'd surf it alone or with one other guy.
Wow.
See somebody coming, you're like, hey, come on out. And the bigger day now, everybody's like, go home, get away. And that there's 60 and 70 guys in the water on a good day. But,
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And did you ever go back? Were you doing trips at all back to California or back at home, or when you kind of set up in Ericeira, that was it? You were going to try and make it work. And
I think in the early days, I may have had 2-year periods when I didn't make it back. Just got financially, it wasn't happening. I couldn't make it in that. But it's been pretty much every year I'll make it back.
Okay.
I think because when my parents were still alive, I've married since I married in '86 and that over here, and I've got 2 girls who are now my oldest daughter's 31, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I hope she doesn't see this and tells me I missed it by 2 years. But anyways, yeah, and I get back every year because my parents wanted my parents to see the grandchildren, and so it was pretty much every year thing. And up till now, my parents have since passed away, but I still get back to see my brother and sister and that. So
okay, yeah.
But going back there, I'll go back to see good friends. I've got a really good friend who lives in Carpinteria, and we'll surf for Rincon together when I get home and that. But we're not. It's it's a funny thing as you get older. I think at a certain point where if you get out and you get 2 or 3 really good waves, you're stoked. You don't need to get 20 or 30. And I mean, I've seen guys, young generation guys that I know that, they get 40 and 50 and they still get out of the water frustrated because it was crowded. Jesus, things I got 3 and I'm stoked. This guy got 40 and he's bummed. Something wrong with that. But anyway, it's all good. Youth. It's all about youth, I guess. Huh?
I know. I think you definitely you just get more patient, right? I mean, I remember when I started surfing about 20 years ago, and it's sort of same. You just want to get as many waves as you can, and I think it's sort of yeah.
And I think just satisfied with less. I mean, I'm gonna have a diver. Like I said, I started skin diving when I was really young in that. And I'm still totally into skin diving. For me, that's pretty much that's where I totally get away from everything. Because if you're skin diving, I skin dive alone most of the time, and it's peaceful. No one's asking you.
It's not work related, right? So it's sort of.
No, totally. And if you're surfing, someone's, hey, I want to talk to you about a board, or hey, when's my board going to be ready? Or hey, this board's feeling a bit funky on cutbacks and that. And you're like, I came out here to surf. I want to relax. And it's hard to do sometimes, but nothing against that. It's my business, you got to live with that. I'll answer calls on the weekend because it is my business, It's mine, so you got to take care of business. But diving is definitely a major getaway for me. I mean, you know, you just unplug.
Yeah.
And pretty much just get into the ocean, you know.
Yeah. And anything else? Like, was there any sort of thing that you kind of sort of started doing over there? Like, or was it just diving that you mainly kind of as a hobby? Around Ericeira?
I've actually been skiing a couple times in the last few years, up to like Andorra and that.
Yeah.
Which I also find is amazing because I mean, everybody takes a chair up and everybody comes down the mountain. It's not like I got to hassle anybody. This is my wave. This is my mountain. You know, so you just kind of do
There's
it.
no dropping in, right? You can kind of
you do it at your own pace. You know, you don't have to do it that well, or you know.
Yeah.
I just have a ball doing that. It's like snow it attracts me a lot these days.
Yeah.
Although I am a bit cautious. I've got 2 hip replacements, so I'm not looking to like, you know, do any restructuring on the mountain there. So I got to take it easy. I got to slow myself down once in a while up there.
And like when do you think, like with the brand, when that really kind of took off, was that sort of, would you say sort of after Quick and Billabong had kind of moved in, and then sort of when you got the team going, and was that something you think?
Well, it's a funny thing. I think our brand took off. We were probably doing well. I mean, making a lot of surfboards before the big brands kind of set in.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had, when they started setting in, we had a clothing brand. Our clothing brand, Cement. This is quite an old T-shirt, actually. It's one of ours, one of the old ones. Yeah, but I still got all this old shit. My wife hasn't been able to get it out of here yet. She's got rid of probably about 80% of it, but I'm still holding on tight to 20% of the old stuff I got. But yeah, we had our clothing was booming, you know, back in the 80s and 90s and that. And you know, we sold tons of T-shirts and all that. I think our label was doing really well.
Yeah.
You know, when those guys started coming in, I think it changed probably in the beginning of 2000, or like when the planes hit the towers in New York. Mm-hmm. There was an economic crisis, and then at that point, there were big change in the way that Quicksilver and Billabong, all those guys had set up like bases up in France and that.
Yeah.
So their prices came down. Their marketing was huge. Prices of production for us in Portugal came way up. You know, there was a period there where things changed a lot market-wise, and we lost a lot of market ground, I think, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and like, was that when you were like, did you think that you got to focus on something? Was that sort of around like looking at sort of high performance and looking at those kind of boards? Was that around then, do you think, or was it all?
No, I think there's nothing to do with surfboard-wise. I mean, surfboard-wise, I think we've always been really strong, like since the beginning. We've worked with, you know, almost every national champion, and I've always been like with the greatest surfers in the country. And evolution-wise, as far as surfboards goes, that's always been my major focus, like big times. I mean, totally into that. And up till today, we've got Vasco Rivera these days. Back in the day, we had Bubish, you know, went through Bubish and Bruno Charneca, who was, you know, Paul in a sense, who for me was a legend from his period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I work with the pin, work with, you know, tons of guys throughout the history of Portuguese surfing. So I think as far as high performance boards and staying on tone to what was going on in the market and what was going on in the rest of the world surfboard wise, I think we were pretty much on top of that all the time. I made boards for a lot of pros from around the world when they came through Portugal and that. So
yeah,
surfboard wise, I think we were always there, like have always grown, and we're still kind of on top of it. You know, hopefully we're on top of it.
Yeah,
but yeah, clothing's a whole other thing. You know, and that was
yeah. How come you thought about doing the clothing line initially? What was the idea?
Well, we started making some T-shirts. You know, people were stoked on the T-shirts, so we just started, you know, on from there. And as you know, there's good margin in clothing. I mean, compared to surfboards, there's really good margin. That's why.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably why we got into it more than anything. You know.
Yeah, and less sort of labor intensive, right? And kind of.
Well, you know, having a factory is one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Surfboard building. I think having a factory, any kind of production it's a pain in the butt, you know. It's, you know, labor, it's materials, it's, you know, legalities, everything. Mm-hmm. making surfboard like building anything else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And clothing in itself, there's a lot involved. You know, you've got your designers, you got to take care of the stuff. You have to go to the factories, your materials. what stuff you're going to do, your prints, your embroideries, your buttons. There's a lot involved also in clothing. And it's time consuming in that. And you have to have things on time, and it's a whole different business, because you're paying for collections, you're selling stuff, you're delivering without receiving money. So we were a small company. All of a sudden, we had a lot of money rolling, but rolling behind it, you're spending a lot of money and hoping that the money will eventually come in.
Yeah.
So it was hard for us because we had huge numbers, and we were working on bank loans to keep us rolling. So.
Well, and then that was sort of then like trying to fill the supply and kind of keeping up and all these things that kind of go into it.
Numbers got big and scary, and like I say, when the planes hit the towers in New York, we took a beating just because we had a big client that went bankrupt and all that. Just we took a beating there because we just old news. We learned from it.
Yeah. And within the sort of timing, I guess sort of going back to like the early 80s, I mean, what would you say has been the kind of the biggest shift or the biggest change within surfboard manufacturing, and what's kind of affected or what has helped you guys the most, do you reckon?
The changes in production and that, you mean? Or just the whole market itself?
Both. I mean, production and
I think,
the whole kind of surf industry.
I think for like the early days, it was all, I want to say hand to mouth. It was all, you know what I mean? It was orders by people that visited you personally, and that there weren't that many shops set up, back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's like these days, if I look at it now, it's what's up, it's Instagram, it's, internet. We've got all kinds of stuff going. There's tons of shops. There's, we're making boards for all kinds of countries. Our orders are coming in a different way. It's much easier to organize, much easier to, take care of things. Production in itself, is modernized a lot as far as machinery goes. We've got machines that are cutting them. We're designing on a computer as opposed to knocking it back by hand. Availability of materials, better materials, a lot more, I think there's been a lot of changes. It's all simplified. You can put out more boards on a more professional label, on a more professional level, faster. But it's all for me. I don't know. One of the things like in our label, I've always thought about is that we've always wanted to keep it as personal as possible. Like we've never gone past a certain amount of boards per month.
Okay.
Just because I don't think I really want to, because you see so many labels. For me, I see a lot of labels. It's online. Never made surfboards in their life. They're in the middle of wherever, Germany, Austria, or whatever. And got a great guy as far as like setting up a site, beautiful images, do the whole layout of surfboards and that, go to a factory in China, Thailand, wherever. Have them do up some models that they can actually pull off of Shape 3D or somewhere else. Do up models, have all the letterings, have all this cool writing, all this cool labeling, and sell a bunch of boards, but there's no heart in the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we've always been pretty much, do custom surfboards, people to order them. They come, they'll sit down, they'll have a chat, about what they want, what they've, ask them, bring in their favorite board, what they like to ride, and kind of try and figure out what they need. And I think, for me, it's something I just like to make surfboards, but I like to make surfboards without being the mass production, straight off the site thing. Obviously, you have to work off your site. People do buy via sites. I mean, they do look at your site and the other site and check out your leaders and that. But it's something, you do when you set up a model. I'll set up a model if it's a proven model that I know it's going to work in that. And then I'll lay out like everybody does, the width, thickness, different leaders for each length and that, and a description of the board. But I will work out of the box on most of my models also, Like if someone comes in and says, I was looking at that model button, I'll say, well, maybe we'll do the same model, but let me fiddle around with it because I don't think you need that much width in the tail or something. It's still try and keep it personal, not just be full-blown whatever on it,
Do you reckon that's what keeps you going? Like having like feeling that it's personal, and then if someone walks away with a new board and they know that it's kind of
that's still like
sort of,
that's still a huge satisfaction for me. You know what I mean? I mean to have someone, the guy called me from a good friend of mine called me from Madeira yesterday to say that I just made him a 610. He said he wanted a 610 real floaty. This guy's like 56 or 57. And I made him a 610 for Madeira, for big waves here, Coast was doing that. And he just called me yesterday telling me he was super stoked.
Nice.
He said he's not going to buy any more JS. Huh? But no, it is. And it's, I think that's what kept me in this business is the fact that, and this is not against sanders or glassers and that, but if my mentality, if I had to sand or glass every day, I would have gone ape shit crazy by now already. I would have been bored to death. And shaping has a tendency to keep your mind alert and, like always evolving kind of in a way. Yeah. Not that they don't evolve also in techniques and that, but I think it just, I don't know, just keeps you busy because you're always thinking about new stuff and you're looking at new stuff. And, I still measure up boards from other people just to see what's going on in the rest of the world. Because I think, you have to see what's going on in the whole industry. I've never really, thought I was that good to close my eyes to what everybody else is doing.
Where do you think it is going? In terms of
I tell you what, when I was watching those guys,
boards and
when I was watching Kai Lenny and Shank and those guys doing 360 aerials on the takeoff yesterday at Nazareth, I don't know where it's going, man.
If it's like it's turning into snowboarding, right? When I saw that, I was just like, "There's not many people in the world that are actually doing that on those." Kind of
it was like straight off, huh? It was just like the first wave of the contest. Boom. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. When you ask where it's going, I was watching the contest at Haleiwa. I don't know if you followed that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And John had a 10 in that wave.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the peak and like essence of surf, modern surfing, but good, the way I like to see it. That one wave, you got like 4 maneuvers in, which was takeoff, really clean rotation up top, major carve, I want to say a tube, and then he had an aerial at the end, but it was clean. But it was all like super slick and super clean and with flow, modern, but also classic because his carves are classic and that. So just for me, it's going all kinds of directions, but that base that I like to see, like, is still there in that. Like speed, good flow, body, good body language on a wave and that. Instead of being like a battle against the wave to, flow with the wave. That's what I see like in a John or a lot of other guys too. There's a lot of guys that have this beautiful flow of the ocean. Yeah. And I think that for me is always going to be a part of it. If it's going to go there or not, I don't know. Because you watch, I'll watch, there's a lot of guys that the whole wave seems to be a preparation for an aerial in the end. And that's never done it for me. It's not like, but aerials seem to be, a big part of it. I think that might start to tone down where they're going to want to see more. I mean, I'm talking contest surfing,
Yeah.
Well, I think that was good, like watching John's wave and seeing that he got a 10 in that, because that means they're giving value to a lot of facets aside from just the aerial thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, where it's going, I don't know. I remember sitting way back, I want to say in the 1990s, with a guy named Nicky Williams, who's up in England, South African guy. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was a great surfer. He's a funnier than hell guy. He paints stuff up in London now, I think.
Okay.
Nick Williams, he used to glass for us, and he was a friend of mine and that. We did all kinds of stuff together. But we used to sit and chat about, imagine what maneuvers will come up. And, like, I want to say most of them are happening right now, And it's wild because he said, guys doing this, like carving back and, all the stuff that's happening now. Aerial 360s, reverse, and, corkscrews up in the air and all that. We're thinking about all that stuff, and it's happening now. So
yeah. And are like people like Vasco and other team riders, are they sort of coming to you going, okay, like this is what they envisage, or looking at competition surfing, and sort of asking certain specifics or certain things on the boards that they're riding?
I think they're going to ask. It's the type of board they're going to ask for.
Okay.
They're going to say, I want to, my board's a bit stiff. Like if it's stiff going from top to bottom, they need quick release. And, to be able to put 3 maneuvers in the space of 2, they're going to ask, they're going to tell me what their board's lacking. We're going to figure out where to put it, where to find it,
Yeah.
But it's content. And I know that, like, Wagoni has ordered some boards from me now, and he ordered he's got some really solid boards for, like, say, good solid days at Koshus or wherever here. And he said he just wants some for some solid days that are a bit looser than a solid one. So you get a bit more maneuver in the same type of wave, but something looser. So, it's just changing rockers. It's, lightening up a bit of concave or, fin positioning. There's all kind of stuff that goes into it. But it depends on what people want to do, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do ask for, they're not going to tell me, I want to do this maneuver or that maneuver, but they're going to tell me I need more looseness here. I need to
depending on where they are, right?
Yeah.
Where they're riding.
And it all comes down to waves, too. Like a quiver for Australia is going to be a different quiver than one for, like, European tour or, Hawaii, whatever.
Yeah. And what do you think on the whole, like, with wave technology and parks, and how's that going to affect everything, or kind of
with the wave pools and all the inland surf spots and that? I think it's going to be huge as far as markets go for the surfboard builders.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be giant, because if we look at the amount of surfers in the world right now, which not that many if you compare it to like golf or tennis or whatever, and the amount of area that we're dealing with, it's big, but it's not that big.
Yeah.
If you look at the inland, if you open up all of a sudden inland in the middle of the United States or the middle of Europe or middle of Australia, and that all of a sudden you got these parks popping up all over the place, all these new people, all these population jumping into the surf scene, it'll be huge for, I think, board builders. I've done like 5 models now for a shop that we work with in Switzerland, with Safari Surf Shop.
Oh, okay.
Just for the Galaya Park.
Yeah.
Did like 5 models. And I mean, just for that shop alone in Munich, in Switzerland, Zurich.
Yeah.
Right. Just for that shop in Zurich, we've got like 6 different models just for like the static pool. And for the rivers, the inland rivers and all that. So like, I make tons of boards for like Switzerland. Yeah. Probably my biggest client.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I've never surfed out. So I went to the river wave in Munich. I've surfed that a couple of times, and it's completely different, right? I mean, it's not like, and just the whole, everyone's sort of waiting on this on the side of the riverbank, and they're like, after you, you're our guest, and I think they just want to see you. They want to see you fall if you haven't done it before.
Fall off, and then you fall off and get back in line, freeze your ass off for another half an hour, right?
You just get swept down the river.
I never did that one.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good. We did it like, I think the last time I went was during Oktoberfest. So you've kind of got all these people in lederhosen. They're all dressed, coming from Oktoberfest. They're all watching, and people are cheering and stuff. And it's
all right.
It's cool. You can watch from the bridge, and it's good. That's really interesting. That so now, like, you're then building these types of boards for like artificial inland waves, and
and I think the whole pool thing, like I say, it's gonna put a lot more surfers in the water. I mean, they're gonna start there, and then they're going to make a trip to the coast and whatnot. Like a park like Alaya, it's pretty proper waves in that. So they're gonna want to hit the coast eventually, and it's a huge market for all board builders.
Yeah. And where do you see with Portugal going? I mean, is that, I guess now, sort of this area is the center of surfing, almost sort of taking over from France, and like becoming one of the headquarters, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely is one of the headquarters for sure. And it's it's crazy. I mean, what it's grown, I want to say in the last 10 years has been amazing. I mean, the expansion of the amount of surf schools, the amount of surf camps, and I'd say from southern Portugal all the way up. Yeah. I mean, it's gone crazy. I'm sure if you go down to the Algarve, it's amazing the amount of surf schools there are, and the foreigners that are here, getting lessons, staying at the surf camps, hanging out, living the surfer's life and all that. It's gone crazy. Yeah. And Ericeira has just gone ballistic. Yeah. Which is, like I said, it's good and bad. It's good for business, and as far as lifestyle goes, it's not like it was in '82. That's for damn sure.
Do you find it strange, kind of like looking back at it, thinking like, wow, like if there's like hundreds of surf schools and things all over the country, and like is it
well,
a little bit weird?
I don't find it strange. I think it's just this, maybe the strange reality. I mean, the strange, which is not strange. It's the reality of any place that has something to offer. Yeah. The way this area does, it's natural that it's going to grow. I mean, and surf's cancer wherever it starts, man. People go crazy on it. It's and it's bound to grow up, and it is what it is now. And I'm not going to say I'm bummed about it, because I was fortunate enough to have taken advantage of it when it was like it was back in the day. I was lucky enough to be here. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be sour about it not being like that anymore, because business-wise, it's a lot better. Like I say, you know, it's obviously, for me, it hurts a bit because it's not that, you know, kind of country living that it was before, and not this small group of good friends that would go down there, have a little fire, kosher, and that. I mean, you know, it's changed a lot, you know, in a sad way, and it's more commercial, it's more crowded, it's, you know, but that's progress, isn't it? I mean, there's more people on the entire planet than there ever were. So and if you look at Portugal, you're going to look at J-Bay, you're going to look at you know, the Menawais, Indonesia, anywhere.
All of them, right?
Yeah. All the guys that were there in the early days are going to say, it used to be like this, now it's all screwed up, and but and I look at, there's kids now these days that I think that it's like kids in California back in the day. If you were born in crowded California, grew up in that environment, and surfed that city environment of surfing with tons of guys in the water, it's your day-to-day thing. So you're used to that, you know, and it's, you know, it's more of a shocker for people who've been here, were here back in the day and saw it early, and now they look at it and go, oh, it's all ruined, it's all destroyed. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I used to live in Sydney for 7 years when I moved from the UK before I came to Portugal, and you know, I'd be out in Manly and there'd be like 100 people in the water before work at like 6 a.m. And you're like, what's going on? Yeah. Like at a Carcavelos, there was like maybe like 2 guys out for like 2 hours. It was like, was there like a big Benfica game on, or like what's going on? You know, it was like it was pumping, and it wasn't that busy at all.
They saw the first shark here in Portugal, or what? Right?
It was like
that's why I remember paddling out. Okay. I remember paddling out at Malibu ages ago. It was back in the 70s. Paddling out at Malibu, pitch black, thinking me and my buddy, we were the first guys out there. And by the time we paddled out the back, we kind of like 20 guys already, you know, on the way out. It was pitch black. People waiting for the sun, you know. So, it's crowded. It was crowded, you know, when I started. And like I say, when I came over here, it was unbelievable because no one was here. There were probably 100 surfers in the entire country at the time, from north to south. So,
wow,
that was a good one.
Nick, what's if people want to get hold of you and find out more about Semente Surfboards, like what's the best way?
Just by way of the site, www.cement.pt, I think. Nice. Or just by email, which is cement@cement.pt. All right, and pretty much there. Get online, modernize, you know.
Thanks, Nick.
We're on Instagram, you know, we're on WhatsApp and all that stuff, so you can get a hold of us.
Nice, man. Well, it's been amazing speaking to you. We definitely got to catch up. I'll try and come up to Ericeira, and all right, Ollie. Whenever you're in town, pull up, man. Pull up the factory, the warehouse. All right. That'd be cool, man. Happy holidays. All right. You too. Have a good one. All right. Have a good one.